Okay, so maxing out a stocks and shares ISA is certainly no easy feat, but somehow this year I managed to do it. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is actually taking you through everything I changed to be able to make this happen. And if you stick around, I'm actually going to be sharing 2 bonus hacks that is actually going to give you every chance in maxing yours out in the coming year as well. Let's get into it. Alright, so first off, let's actually start to understand what it actually means by maxing out your ISA and why I think it's so important that everyone tries their best to do so. Okay, so to be able to max out a stocks and shares ISA, what you're going to have to do is invest £20,000 within a 1-year period. And of course, the reason why it's so important to try your best to max this account out or invest as much as you possibly can into it is because any money that you make from this account, whether it be dividends or capital gain, is going to be completely tax-free. This means that no matter what you make, for as long as you decide to invest, as long as it's within your stocks and shares ISA, you will never ever have to go ahead and report that money to HMRC. Now, the second reason why it's so important to try your best to max out this account, or like I said, invest as much as possible, is because when the ISA limit does reset on April the 6th, you don't actually get any carryover. It just simply goes back to £20,000. For example, let's say you invested £15,000 in year 1. That does not mean your limit increases to £25,000 the next year because you missed out on the £5,000. It simply gets reset to £20,000 every single year. The only time that it could ever potentially change is if our government either decide to increase it or decrease it, but for the year of 2022 through to 2023, the limit has been confirmed as 20,000. But now that we actually know that, let's actually get into some of the changes that I made that took me from only being able to invest around 25% of my ISA to investing and maxing out the entire thing. And the first thing that I knew that I needed to do was get in control of my finances. And basically the first thing that I did, and the thing that I recommend everybody does, honestly, if you have never done this before, you have to do this, is actually spend 1 month tracking every single penny you actually spend. Now, you can do this in a number of ways. First off, you could just use the traditional pen and piece of paper. You could also go ahead and download an app that will do this for you. Or if you're with a bank like Monzo or Starling, they're actually already doing it for you. And basically, if you go ahead and do this for 1 or 2 months, no matter how good or bad you are at saving, one thing that you will start to notice is some patterns within your spending. Well, at least I did. What I basically realized that I was spending way too much money eating out. I wasn't buying regular items I used in bulk, and I found out my shopping bill to be much higher than others that were in a similar situation to myself. And basically, knowing this, all I had to do from there was make the right adjustments, and what I actually ended up doing was saving an extra £400 every single month that I could put towards maxing out my stocks and shares ISA. And when I break things down, whilst I'm no maths genius, I already worked out that just making some small changes to the way that I actually lived my life, I was able to already save 25% of that £20,000 limit without actually even thinking about adding any more money to my income yet. But of course, this was just one of many things that I had to change. I knew that if I was going to be able to max out my ISA, there was other things that I was going to have to do as well. And the next thing that I started doing was something called paying myself first. Alright, so for most people, me included, the way that we would typically save money is that we would work hard throughout the month, we would get our paycheck at the end of the month, and then we would live frugally on that money that we receive, and anything left over before the next paycheck we would save. However, paying yourself first is a concept where you actually prioritize your financial goals before you even think about anything else. So instead of living frugally throughout the month and then saving the remainder what you have into your investment accounts, what you would do is actually put the money into your investment accounts first and then adapt your lifestyle based on the money that you have left over. Now, for me, when I started doing this, I saw instantly 3 benefits. Number 1, I was getting more money into my investment accounts faster. Number 2, because I was actually paying myself first, this of course meant I had less money to live on throughout the month. This actually trained my brain to actually live more frugally throughout the rest of that month. And then number 3, I never missed a payment, because at the end of the day, when it's the first thing that you do when you receive your paycheck ahead of anything else, you have absolutely zero excuses. Now you may be thinking, yes, Christos, this all sounds really good. You're putting your money away at the start of the month. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You're living frugally and all of that good stuff. But what what if you get hit with a bill for your car, or maybe your boiler, or anything that is completely unexpected? How are you going to be able to cope with that if you've already allocated all of your money towards your investments? Well, this is where I did the next big thing that really helped me max out my ISA, and that is by creating a bunch of sinking funds. And basically, all a sinking fund is, for those that didn't already know, is a small pot that you can create for occasions that are going to happen in the future, and then you can contribute to that small pot every single month, and then when you need that money, you can then access it from your sinking fund instead of having to take it out from your monthly income that you receive. So an example of one of mine, as you can see, I have set aside a tax sinking fund. And basically the way that I have this set up is that anytime I receive any money into my business bank account, I will actually instruct my bank to be able to take out 20% of that money, put it into a separate pot to cover my tax later on. And doing this allows me to feel comfortable because I know that no matter how much money I earn, I am going to have a set amount of money aside to cover my tax bill, and I know I'm not going to be left short and have to dip into the money that I had set aside for my investments. Now, to be able to do this really easy, I really do suggest signing up to a banking app like Monzo or Starling, because as you can see from my example right here, just right now I've been able to create a sinking fund pot for Christmas gifts, a yearly holiday and car repairs, and all I have to do now is decide how much I actually want to allocate into it. So going back to how I managed to max out my ISA, when I actually broke things down, I was saving more money to invest just by reviewing my spending and making adjustments. I knew I was putting away the maximum amount of money I could on a consistent basis by paying myself first. And then finally, I knew I could take care of those larger payments that could potentially affect my investment strategy by creating a set of sinking funds. However, despite these 3 steps being a really good start, the income that I was achieving with it being my first year in business was still going to set me a small way off achieving that £20,000 ISA limit and taking full advantage. So knowing that, there was one more thing that I had to do, and this is when starting a side hustle or starting multiple side hustles came into it. Now, I can confidently say right now that starting multiple side hustles has been by far the best thing that I have ever done in my life. And the strange thing with my business right now is that most of my income was actually started as a side hustle in the first place, and right now there isn't really one side hustle that dominates another. Basically, the way I make money right now isn't just one business that's bringing me all the money, it's actually a combination of small side hustles when added together brings me quite a modest income. And that's actually really good because of a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm never going to get bored. And number two is that if one of my side hustles doesn't perform on one of the months, I know that I can rely on 6 or 7 others and just put more time into them to make up for it. Now, the reason why these actually help me reach my 20k limit, other than the obvious one of course, making more money, is that because I had trained my mind to become so good with money management with the money that I was already achieving, I was able to take any additional income that I would make from any of my side hustles and invest 100% of that into my ISA. This meant that any additional money that I was making from my ISA, I could either invest all of that into my stocks and shares ISA, or I could take some of that money and reinvest it back into my ISA, which would of course in the long run help me make more money. Let's take my reselling side hustle for example. With that, around 4 or 5 years ago, I started with just £500 that I had dedicated in a separate bank account. Of course, I then went and took that money, I went and bought things, I resold them for profits, but instead of just taking the profits and spending them, I actually decided to reinvest most of that money into buying more stock. And of course, it doesn't take a genius to work out that doing something like that is going to grow your business a lot faster than if you were taking profits. And when you look at my business right now, I currently have an Amazon and eBay business worth over £50,000. Now, one thing that I could do with that business is just stop it straight away and just use all of the money every single month and just top up my ISAs throughout the next couple of years. But of course, I don't want to do that because I can continue growing this business, which is only going to make saving and investing even easier in the future. And just to say, this isn't me just sitting here saying, look at me, I started this business, I'm making all of this money. What I am saying is that this is somebody that took something as simple as going into charity shops and buying secondhand books and turned it into a 50 grand business. Now, if you did want some ideas or some other side hustles that you could potentially start, then what I'm going to do is share with you this video that I'm going to leave a link to in the description down below. But before you do that, don't click away, because what I'm going to share with you right now are 2 extra hacks that you can actually start thinking about right now before that April deadline resets, so that you have every chance on maxing out your ISA in the coming year. With the first one being that you make sure that you have already picked your ISA provider way before the 6th of April deadline when they actually reset. This is simply because you do not want to get to that date and not have an ISA provider, because you want to hit the ground running as soon as that limit resets. Trust me, I've been there before, where I've been so indecisive on who I actually want to go ahead and choose, to the point where it almost even stopped me from investing in the first place. Now, in terms of the providers that I suggest, I would say look at either Trading 212 or Hargreaves Lansdown. These are just simply the two that I've used before in the past and present right now, and these are the ones that have worked really well for me. If you wanted to check any of those two out, I will leave a link in the description down below for those. However, if you actually wanted to fully shop around, what I actually have is a full comparison of all the different ISAs within my free to join Discord group, where you can compare everyone on the market and make your decision from there. So choosing your ISA provider way before the ISA deadline date is definitely going to be the first thing that you need to get in place. Now, the second thing is, of course, you need to make sure that you are picking the right investments for your stocks and shares ISA. Now, for me, what I like to do is actually have all of my dividend paying stocks and all of my ETF funds sat within my stocks and shares ISA, and then have all of my other speculative plays sat within just my general investing accounts. This gives me the option to be able to get in and out of them very quickly. And also, because the stocks that I have sat within my ISA are generally going to be less riskier than the others, I'm never really going to have any hesitation in investing large amounts of money into this, which, if it was the other way round, this could actually prevent me from investing more money and actually maxing out that ISA. However, if you're still watching this and you're thinking, yes, I do want to max out that 20k limit, but I still don't really know what investments I need to be investing into within that portfolio, then you really do need to check out this video right here, because I actually take you through how to build the perfect Vanguard portfolio. Trust me, you don't want to miss it, so I'll see you in there.